It all started at a dinner table that I had bought. Well, I paid for the groceries anyway. That had become the dynamic in our house over the last few years. I was the silent engine keeping things running, and my brother, Mason, was the loud hood ornament that everyone admired despite the rust underneath. 2 weeks. That was the countdown. 2 weeks until I officially became a doctor. The air in the dining room was thick with the smell of roast chicken and tension. I had been rehearsing this moment in my head for a month. I wasn't asking for a car. I wasn't asking for a down payment on a house. I was asking for 3 hours of their time. I reached into my bag and pulled out the envelope. It was heavy, cream-colored paper with gold embossing. Medical school graduation. It felt substantial in my hand, like the weight of the last 4 years of sleepless nights, caffeine overdoses, and the kind of stress that makes your hair turn gray before 30. "Mom, Dad," I said, my voice steady. "Here are your tickets. I got you VIP seating. Front row center." I placed them on the table. They sat there, gleaming under the chandelier light. My mother, Susan, looked up from her plate. She wiped the corner of her mouth with a napkin, her eyes darting briefly to the tickets and then away, like they were something unpleasant, like a bill she couldn't pay. "Oh, Gabriel," she started, her voice pitching up in that way it always did when she was about to deliver bad news wrapped in fake kindness. That's wonderful, sweetie. Really." My father, Robert, didn't even look up. He was too busy cutting his chicken, sawing at it with unnecessary aggression. Then Mason cleared his throat. Mason was 30. He was sitting across from me, wearing a t-shirt that said CEO on it, though he hadn't held a steady job since the Obama administration. He leaned back, picking his teeth with a fingernail. "About that, Gabe," Mason said, a smirk playing on his lips. "We've got a bit of a scheduling conflict." I froze. "A conflict? It's my graduation, Mason. The date has been set for 4 years. "Yeah, but you know how things pop up," Mason said, waving his hand dismissively. "See, I've been working on this new venture, Project X. It's big, huge. Social media influence, lifestyle branding, the works. And to launch it, I need a splash. A big event. A pool party to end all pool parties." I stared at him. "You're throwing a pool party." "Not just a party, bro. A networking event," Mason corrected, looking at our parents for validation. "Lumbos, models, high-end tequila. It's going to put me on the map." "And when is this party?" I asked, though the cold stone in my stomach told me I already knew the answer. "Saturday the 15th, Mason said. "Kickoff is at 1 p.m. "My ceremony starts at 1 p.m., I said, looking at my father. "Dad." Robert finally put his knife down. He sighed, a long, heavy sound that made it seem like I was the one being unreasonable. "Gabriel, look," Dad said, his voice gruff. "You know how hard Mason has been trying. The market is tough. He's had some bad breaks. He needs a win." "I'm becoming a doctor," I said, the words tasting like ash. "Is that not a win? Is that not a win for this family?" "Of course it is, honey," Mom interjected quickly, reaching across the table to pat my hand. I pulled my hand away. "But you're strong, Gabriel. You've always been the independent one. You don't need us to hold your hand to walk across a stage. Mason, he's in a fragile place right now. If nobody shows up to his launch, it could crush him. So you're skipping my medical school graduation to watch Mason get drunk in a kiddie pool? It's an in-ground pool, Gabriel. Don't be an elitist," Mason snapped. "And it's about support. Family supports family. I need Mom and Dad there to manage the vendors, handle the guests. It's a big operation." I looked at them, really looked at them. I saw the way my mother looked at Mason with that soft, blind adoration she had never directed at me. I saw the way my father looked at him with a desperate hope that this time, finally, his golden boy would strike gold. And when they looked at me, they saw a utility bill, necessary, reliable, but not something you loved. "You have a choice," I said, my voice dropping an octave. "I worked 3 jobs to pay for this degree. I didn't ask you for a dime. I slept in my car for a week during my second year because I couldn't afford rent and tuition at the same time. I never complained. All I am asking is for you to sit in a chair and watch me finish it. We can't be in two places at once. Dad slammed his hand on the table, the silverware rattling. Stop being so selfish, Gabriel. Your brother needs us more right now. We'll come to your little doctor thing afterwards. If we have time. Maybe for dinner. My little doctor thing, I repeated. You know what I mean, Dad grumbled. It's just a ceremony. The symbolic. Mason's event is business. It's his future. The silence that followed was deafening. I looked at the gold embossed tickets on the table. They looked like mockery now. Okay, I said. Okay, Mom asked, hopeful. You understand? Oh, thank you, Gabriel. I knew you would. You've always been the reasonable one. I understand perfectly, I said. I stood up. I picked up the tickets. What are you doing? Mason asked, eyeing the envelope. Hey, if you're not using those, can I scalp them? I heard VIP seats go for a decent amount. Could help cover the DJ cost. I looked at my brother. I looked at the man who shared my DNA but none of my integrity. Slowly, deliberately, I tore the envelope in half. The sound of the thick paper ripping was the only noise in the room. Mom gasped. Gabriel! I put the halves together and tore them again, and again, until the gold embossing was just glittering confetti in my palm. You're right, I said, dropping the pieces onto my plate, right on top of the cold chicken. It is just a ceremony. And you're right, Dad. Mason is an investment. You should definitely protect your investment. You're being dramatic, Mason scoffed. God, you doctors are so arrogant. I'm leaving, I said, grabbing my coat. Don't expect us to pay for dinner if you walk out, Dad warned. I laughed. It was a dry, humorless sound. Dad, I bought the groceries. I cooked the chicken. You haven't paid for a dinner in this house in 3 years. I walked out the front door, the screen door slamming behind me with a finality that felt like a gunshot. I walked to my beat-up Honda Civic, the car I had driven since high school, the one with the taped-up window and the engine that rattled like a bag of bolts. I sat in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. I didn't cry. I was past crying. Crying is for when you have hope that things might change. I had no hope left for them. My phone buzzed. It was Elena. Hey! Her voice was soft, warm, the total opposite of the icebox I had just left. How did it go? Did they love the VIP seats? I took a deep breath, trying to steady the tremor in my voice. They aren't coming, Elena. There was a pause on the other end. A long, heavy pause. What do you mean they aren't coming? It's your graduation, Gabe. Mason is having a pool party, I said, staring at the peeling paint on my parents' front porch. A networking event. They chose the party. I am going to drive over there and scream at them, Elena said, and I could hear the sound of keys jingling. She meant it. She was small, but she had the ferocity of a lioness when it came to me. No, I said. No, don't. It's better this way. How is this better? She demanded. Because, I said, starting the engine. Now I know. I finally know exactly where I stand. There's no more guessing. No more maybe next time. They made their choice. And now I'm going to make mine. I backed out of the driveway, leaving the house and the people in it in my rearview mirror. I didn't know it then, but I was driving toward a future that would leave them all behind in the dust. As I drove toward the hospital for my final night shift before graduation week, the memories started flooding back. It's funny how trauma works. It doesn't hit you all at once. It chips away at you, piece by piece, until you look in the mirror and realize you're made of cracks. My parents talked about investing in Mason. That wasn't a metaphor. When I was 18, I got into the state university's pre-med program. It was my dream. I ran home, acceptance letter in hand, expecting a celebration. Instead, I found my parents and Mason in the living room, looking at a brochure for a new pickup truck. We can't co-sign your loan, Gabriel, Dad had said, not even looking up from the glossy photo of a Ford F-150. Our credit is a little tight right now. But what about the college fund? I had asked. Grandma left money for both of us. You said it was in a trust. Mom had looked at the floor. Well, about that. Mason needed a reliable vehicle for his business ventures. Appearances matter in the sales world. We used the fund to get him the truck. All of it. I whispered. My half too. We'll pay you back, Mason had said, grinning as he spun a set of new keys on his finger. Once my landscaping business takes off, I'll buy you a hospital, little bro. The landscaping business lasted 3 months. He sold the truck for half its value to pay off a gambling debt. I never saw a dime, so I worked. While my classmates were studying in the library, I was scrubbing toilets at a gym from 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. While they were going to parties on Friday nights, I was waiting tables at a diner until closing. And on weekends, I was an orderly at the hospital, transporting bodies to the morgue and cleaning up bodily fluids that no one else wanted to touch. I became a ghost. I was tired in my bones. I studied on bus rides, I studied during lunch breaks, I studied in the utility closet at the gym. But it was during one of those exhausted, blurry shifts that my life changed. It was 2 a.m. on a rainy Tuesday. The ER was quiet, that eerie calm before the storm. I was technically just a third-year medical student doing rotations, meant to be observing, not acting. Then the doors burst open. Trauma 1. Female. 22. Unrestrained driver. Massive head trauma. BP dropping. The paramedics were shouting, pushing a gurney that was slick with blood. The attending doctor was busy with a cardiac arrest in the next bay. The residents were overwhelmed. I ran to the bay. The girl on the table was pale, her skin almost translucent. Her airway was obstructed. She was choking on her own blood. "We need to intubate," a nurse yelled. It was Elena. That was the first time I really saw her. Her eyes were wide, focused, terrified but capable. "Doctor isn't here," she shouted at me. "She's not breathing, Gabe." I looked at the girl. I looked at the monitor. Her oxygen levels were plummeting. If we waited for the attending, she would be brain dead in 2 minutes. I shouldn't have done it. As a student, I wasn't authorized to perform the procedure without direct supervision. Could end my career before it started. I could be expelled. I could be sued. But I looked at the girl's face. She looked like someone's sister, someone's daughter. "Give me the laryngoscope," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "Gabe," Elena warned. "Give it to me, Elena," I snapped. "I'm not letting her die." She slapped the metal instrument into my hand. My muscle memory took over. I had practiced this on dummies 1,000 times. But flesh is different. The slippery, it resists. I visualized the anatomy. Vallecula, epiglottis, vocal cords. "Suction," I ordered. Elena suctioned the blood. I saw the opening. A tiny window of hope. I slid the tube in. "Bag her." Elena squeezed the ambu bag. We both watched the monitor. 1 second. 2 seconds. Her chest rose. Beep, beep, beep. The oxygen saturation numbers started to climb. 80%. 85%. 90%. "Nice work, kid." I turned around. Dr. Anthony, the chief of surgery, was standing in the doorway. He had blood on his scrubs from the other trauma bay. He had seen the whole thing. My knees almost gave out. "Dr. Anthony, I know I wasn't supposed to." He held up a hand. "You saved her life. We'll talk about protocol later. But you have good hands. Steady hands." That girl turned out to be Sarah. Sarah Joseph, the daughter of Senator Michael Joseph. I didn't tell my parents. When I went home that weekend to do laundry, because I couldn't afford a laundromat, I tried to mention it. "I intubated a patient solo the other night," I said while folding my scrubs. "The chief of surgery said I have good hands." "That's nice," Mom said, not looking up from her phone. "Hey, Mason needs to borrow $50 for gas. Can you leave it on the counter?" "I don't have $50, Mom. I have 20 until payday." "Don't lie, Gabriel. Doctors make plenty of money." "I'm a student, Mom. I pay to work there." Well, find a way. Mason has a date tonight. He can't show up with an empty tank. I left the $20. I always did. I was conditioned to it. I was the safety net for their tightrope walking act. But back in the present, driving to the hospital, I realized the safety net was gone. I had cut it when I tore those tickets. I pulled into the staff parking lot. My phone buzzed again. It wasn't my family. It was a lawyer. An email notification. Subject: Estate of Grandmother Rose Final Disbursement. I frowned. Grandma Rose had died 5 years ago. That was the money my parents claimed to have spent on Mason's truck. I opened the email. Dear Mr. Gabriel, per the terms of the trust, the remaining portion of your inheritance, which was locked until your graduation from an accredited medical doctoral program, is scheduled for release next week. I stared at the screen. Locked. My parents hadn't spent my half. They couldn't. It was in a trust they couldn't touch. They had lied to me. They had let me starve, let me scrub toilets, let me sleep in my car, thinking there was no money, simply because they wanted to hoard their own cash for Mason. They didn't steal my money. They stole my peace of mind. They stole my comfort. They watched me struggle and did nothing, knowing the safety net was there but refusing to tell me about it because they were angry they couldn't raid it for Mason. Rage, hot and white, flooded my veins. Inheritance. I whispered the word. Felt like a weapon. I walked into the hospital. Elena was at the nurse's station. She took one look at my face and knew. What happened? She asked. I'm done, I said. I'm really done, Elena. Good, she said, her eyes fierce. Because I have something to tell you too. My dad wants to have dinner with us after graduation. And he has a surprise. Your dad? I asked, confused. I had never met Elena's father. She rarely talked about him, just said he was in the medical field. My parents always made fun of Elena, calling her just a nurse and implying I could marry up once I was a doctor. Yeah, she smiled, a mischievous glint in her eye. He's been dying to meet the man who stole his best or nurse. I didn't know it then, but the pieces of the puzzle were falling into place. The board was set, and my brother's pool party was about to be the scene of a checkmate he never saw coming. 3 days before graduation. The calm before the storm? No, this was the wind picking up, rattling the windows. I was at my apartment, a tiny studio I shared with a stack of medical textbooks and a coffee maker that leaked. I was packing, not for a vacation, but just organizing my life. I was preparing to move out, to leave this town to start residency. My phone rang. Mom. I debated not answering, but old habits die hard. And part of me, the part that likes to poke a bruise to see if it still hurts, wanted to hear what she had to say. Hello, Gabriel. Her voice was shrill, panicked. Thank God you answered. We have a crisis. Is Dad okay? My doctor brain engaged instantly. What? No, Dad's fine. It's the party. It's Mason. I sat down on my bed, rubbing my temples. What about the party, Mom? The vendor for the sound system, he wants cash up front. And the liquor distributor is demanding a deposit. It's a mess, Gabriel. Mason is stressing out. His anxiety is through the roof. You know he gets palpitations. He gets palpitations when he drinks too much Red Bull, Mom. Don't be cruel. Listen, we need a small loan. Just a bridge loan. Until Mason's investors come through next week. Investors? I almost laughed. Mom, Mason doesn't have investors. He has Instagram followers. There is no money coming. You don't believe in him, she cried. That's your problem. You never have. Look, we just need $5,000. Just wire it to Dad's account. $5,000? I shouted. Mom, I have $300 in my checking account. I am a student. I am unemployed until my residency starts in July. But you can get a loan. Doctors get approved for everything. Just put it on a credit card. Or ask that girlfriend of yours. Doesn't she work double shifts? My blood went cold. You want me to ask Elena to pay for Mason's liquor? It's for the family, Gabriel. Why are you being so difficult? This party is going to make us rich. Mason says the sponsorship deals alone will cover everything. No, I said. What? No. No. I am not giving you money. I am not borrowing money. And do not ever bring Elena into this again. If you don't help us, Mom's voice dropped low, Mason might do something stupid. He's talking about the house. What about the house? Nothing, she said quickly, too quickly. Just, please, Gabriel, think about it. Do you want your brother to fail? He's 30 years old, Mom. Failing is an option he chooses every day. I hung up. My heart was pounding. The house. What did she mean about the house? I had a bad feeling. A gut instinct, like when a patient walks in looking fine but their labs scream internal bleeding. I logged onto the county clerk's website. This public record. Anyone can look up property deeds. I searched my parents' names. There it was. A new filing, dated 2 days ago. A lien. But not on the main house. On the lake cabin. The cabin was the one thing my grandfather had built with his own hands. It was supposed to be the family legacy. It was where I had my only happy childhood memories. Fishing off the dock before Mason got old enough to start pushing me in. They had taken out a second mortgage on the cabin. A high-interest, short-term loan. The kind you get from predatory lenders when no bank will touch you. Value $50,000. I stared at the screen. They hadn't just asked me for $5,000. They had already burned through 50 grand. On a party. They were betting the entire family legacy on a pool party hosted by a man who couldn't keep a goldfish alive. I called Uncle David. David was Dad's younger brother, the black sheep because he refused to enable Dad's gambling back in the day. We rarely spoke, but he was the only sane person in the bloodline. David, I said when he answered. Did you know about the cabin? Gabriel. He sounded tired. Yeah, I heard. Your dad called me bragging about it. Said Mason is going to be the next Elon Musk. Said the party is going to launch an empire. They're going to lose the cabin, David. You know that, right? I told him, David sighed. I told him Mason is a con artist who believes his own cons. Robert told me to go to hell. Said I was jealous. What is Mason actually doing? He's hiring influencers, Gabe, paying people to show up. He rented luxury cars just to park them in the driveway. It's all smoke and mirrors. He thinks if he looks rich, he'll become rich. It's fraud, I said. If he's soliciting investments based on this, it's fraud. It's worse than fraud, kid. It's a ticking time bomb. I heard he's getting the party favors from some shady characters. If the cops show up, let them, I said, surprising myself. Let them show up. You don't mean that. I do. I really do. I hung up. I looked around my empty apartment. I felt lighter. The anger was still there, but the fear was gone. They had crossed the line of no return. They had leveraged their past, the cabin, to destroy their future, all to ignore my present. The next day, 2 days before graduation, I went to pick up my cap and gown. The velvet hood was heavy. Doctor of Medicine. As I walked out of the administration building, I saw a familiar car. A flashy, red convertible. Rented. Mason was sitting in it, revving the engine at a stoplight, wearing sunglasses even though it was cloudy. He saw me. He didn't wave. He just revved the engine louder, staring me down. It was a challenge. A display of dominance. Look at me, look at what I have. I didn't look away. I just held up my garment bag, the one containing my doctoral regalia. I held it up like a shield, like a banner. He sped off, tires screeching, desperate for attention. I walked to my beat-up Honda. Enjoy the ride, Mason, I whispered. Because the crash is coming. That night, Elena came over. She brought pizza and a bottle of cheap wine. We sat on the floor of my apartment among the boxes. My dad is really excited about tomorrow, she said. I'm nervous, I admitted. Not about the ceremony. About seeing them. Or rather, knowing they aren't there. You won't be alone, she grabbed my hand. My dad invited a friend. A VIP. Who? You'll see. But let's just say, you made quite an impression on the senator. Senator Joseph? I choked on my pizza. He's coming. He's the keynote speaker, Gabe. Didn't you read the program? I've been a little distracted. Well, she grinned. He specifically asked if the student with the steady hands was graduating this year. I felt a shiver run down my spine. While my parents were mortgaging their house to buy fake friends for Mason, the most powerful man in the state was coming to shake my hand. The contrast was so sharp it almost cut me. Tomorrow, I said, raising my plastic cup of wine. To tomorrow. To Dr. Gabriel, she clinked her cup against mine. And to Karma. To Karma, I agreed. Little did I know, Karma had RSVP'd to Mason's party, and she was bringing the police. The morning of June 15th dawned bright and hot. Perfect day for a graduation. Perfect day for a pool party. I woke up at 6 a.m. Couldn't sleep. I put on my shirt and tie. I looked in the mirror. I didn't see the tired student who scrubbed toilets anymore. I saw a man who had survived. My phone was silent. No good luck texts from Mom. No proud of you from Dad. I checked Facebook. Big mistake. Mason had been posting all night. Photos of the setup. Stage is set. Hashtag hustle, hashtag empire, hashtag Mason Global. The photos showed my parents' backyard transformed. A massive DJ booth, tiki bar, and parked on the lawn, ruining the grass I used to mow, were a rented Lamborghini and a Ferrari. My mother was in the background of one photo, blowing up balloons. She looked exhausted, her smile strained. My father was holding a keg, looking red-faced. They looked ridiculous, desperate. I closed the app. Not my circus, not my monkeys. I recited the mantra Elena taught me. I drove to the university. The campus was buzzing. Families everywhere. Parents hugging their kids, holding bouquets of flowers, taking photos. I walked alone. I felt a pang of sadness, sharp and deep. It's hard to kill the child inside you who just wants his mom and dad to watch him do something good. Gabriel. I turned. Elena was running toward me, looking stunning in a simple blue dress. Behind her walked an older man. He had silver hair, a sharp suit, and an aura of authority that made people step out of his way. It was Dr. Anthony, the chief of surgery, my mentor. And Elena's dad? Dr. Anthony? I stammered. Gabriel, he smiled, extending a hand. And please, outside the hospital, call me Robert. Wait, your father's name is Robert, isn't it? Call me Tony. You're Elena's father? Guilty, he laughed. I wanted you to make it on your own merit, son. I didn't want you thinking you got favored because you were dating the chief's daughter. And you didn't. You earned every bit of respect I have for you. I looked at Elena. She shrugged, beaming. Surprise. And, Tony continued, since your parents couldn't make it, I took the liberty of claiming their seats. I hope you don't mind. I brought a few colleagues who wanted to meet the valedictorian. Valedictorian. I blinked. I'm in the top 10%, I know, but... Top 1%, Tony corrected. The final rankings were certified this morning. You're giving the speech, kid. Or, well, you would be. But the senator pulled rank and wants to introduce you instead. I felt like the ground was shifting under my feet. Valedictorian. The top of the class. Come on. Tony clapped me on the shoulder. We have a VIP room waiting. No waiting in the sun for you. Meanwhile, across town, the storm was breaking. My Uncle David texted me a play-by-play. He wasn't at the party, but he lived down the street and was watching from his porch with binoculars. Text from Uncle David, 12:30 p.m. It's a zoo. Cars blocking the whole street. Music is shaking my windows. Your dad is arguing with a delivery guy. Looks like the ice sculpture is melting. Text from Uncle David, 12:45 p.m. Mason is wearing a white suit. He looks like a pimp from a bad 80s movie. A lot of sketchy-looking people arriving. Not business investors. These look like... Well, let's just say they aren't here to discuss stock options. I turned my phone off. I stepped into the cool, air-conditioned green room behind the main stage of the auditorium. Senator Michael Joseph was there. He stood up when I entered. He was a big man, intimidating on TV, but up close, his eyes were kind. "Gabriel," he said, bypassing the handshake and pulling me into a hug. "Sarah is starting physical therapy next week. She's going to walk again." That's amazing, sir," I said, feeling tears prick my eyes. "You gave me my daughter back," the senator said, holding my shoulders. "Today, I'm going to give you a little something in return." "Sir, you don't have to." "Hush, it's done. Now get that robe on. It's showtime." As I put on the heavy velvet robe with the 3 stripes on the sleeve, I looked at myself in the mirror. I thought about Mason. Right now, he was probably popping a bottle of cheap champagne, pretending to be a king. He was surrounded by noise, by fake friends, by a mountain of debt. I was in a quiet room, surrounded by people who saved lives, people who shaped laws, people who loved me. I realized then that richness isn't about rented Lamborghinis or loud parties. It's about the quiet confidence of knowing you are exactly where you are supposed to be. "Ready?" Elena asked, fixing my collar. "Ready," I said. I walked out toward the stage. The lights were blinding. The crowd was a sea of faces. And somewhere in that crowd, there were 2 empty seats where my parents should have been. But looking at Tony and Elena in the front row, cheering wildly, I didn't see the empty seats anymore. I saw the full ones. The ceremony began. And 5 miles away, the first police cruiser turned onto my parents' street. The contrast between the 2 worlds was sharp enough to cut glass. At the university hall, the atmosphere was thick with dignity. The organ music swelled. The smell of old wood and expensive perfume filled the air. Thousands of people sat in hushed anticipation. At my parents' house, according to the police report I read later, the air smelled of stale beer, marijuana, and desperation. It was 1:30 p.m. Senator Joseph took the podium. The crowd erupted. He was a beloved figure in our state, known for his toughness and his integrity. "Ladies and gentlemen," his voice boomed, amplified by the state-of-the-art sound system. "We often talk about the future of medicine. We talk about technology, about funding, about policy. But the future of medicine isn't a policy. It's a person." He paused, looking out over the graduates. "6 months ago, my world stopped. My daughter, Sarah, was in a horrific accident. The experts said she wouldn't make it to the hospital. But there was a student in the ER that night. A student who didn't wait for permission to do what was right. A student who had the courage to act. I sat on the stage, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. That student," the senator continued, pointing a finger directly at me, "is your valedictorian, Dr. Gabriel Miller." The applause started as a ripple and turned into a tsunami. My classmates, the ones who had ignored the quiet janitor student for years, stood up. They cheered. They knew. They respected the work. "But I'm not just here to tell a story," the senator said, quieting the crowd. "I am here to make an announcement. In partnership with the State Medical Board and the Joseph Foundation, we are awarding Dr. Miller the Golden Scalpel Fellowship." A gasp went through the room. The Golden Scalpel wasn't just a scholarship. It was a full ride for residency, plus a living stipend, plus a guaranteed attending position at the university hospital upon completion. It was $1 million ticket. And, the senator smiled, "Since I know student loans are a burden, we have retroactively paid off his entire medical school tuition." Covered my mouth. My knees shook. Elena was crying in the front row. Tony was giving me a thumbs up. I stood up to walk to the podium. Simultaneously, at 1:35 p.m., the pool party. My parents had the TV on in the living room. It was muted, playing the local news channel in the background, while they frantically tried to manage the chaos in the backyard. Mason was drunk. He was standing on a table, pouring vodka into the mouth of a stranger. "Drink, drink. Mason Global taking over," he screamed. Dad was arguing with a group of bikers who had crashed the party. "This is a private event. Networking only." "Networking?" One of the bikers laughed, smashing a beer bottle on the patio. Your boy Mason owes us for the powder, old man. We're here to collect. Mom ran into the living room to escape the noise. She looked at the TV. The breaking news banner flashed red. Live. Senator Joseph honors local hero. She stopped. She saw the screen. There was me, her son. The one she had ignored. The one she had refused to give $5 to. I was shaking hands with the senator. I was holding a giant check. The cheerin' read, Dr. Gabriel Miller Valedictorian Full Fellowship awarded. Robert, she screamed. Robert, come here. Dad ran in, sweating, his shirt stained with salsa. What? Are the cops here? Look, she pointed at the TV. Dad squinted. He saw me. He saw the senator. He saw the words, Full Fellowship. Is that Gabriel? He whispered. He won, Mom said, her voice trembling. He won everything. Robert, look at that check. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars. He didn't tell us, Dad said, his face turning purple. He didn't tell us he was friends with the senator. We didn't go. Mom sank onto the sofa. Oh my God, Robert. We didn't go. He needs to share that, Dad said, a greedy light entering his panic-stricken eyes. We're his parents. He can't just keep all that. Call him. Call him right now. Dad pulled out his phone. Just then, the front door was kicked open. It wasn't Gabriel coming to save them. Police. Search warrant. Everybody down. A SWAT team poured into the hallway. What is this? Dad screamed. I'm a respectable citizen. Robert Miller? An officer shouted, pinning Dad against the wall. You're the owner of this property? Yes. Get off me. We have reports of distribution of narcotics and serving minors. And we have a warrant for a Mason Miller regarding fraudulent loan applications. Mason, Dad wheezed. Out in the backyard, the music cut out. The screams changed from joy to terror. Mason tried to run. He jumped the back fence, tearing his white suit. He landed right in the arms of a waiting officer. Don't touch me, Mason shrieked. I'm an influencer. I'm a CEO. My dad will sue you. Inside the house, Mom was crying, watching the TV. On the screen, I was stepping up to the microphone, looking calm, looking powerful. My name is Dr. Gabriel Miller, TV Gabriel said. And I got here thanks to the people who believed in me when I had nothing. Mom reached out to touch the screen, tears streaming down her face. I believed in you, she lied to the empty room. Gabriel, tell them I believed in you. An officer grabbed her arm. Ma'am, step away from the television. Put your hands behind your back. But my son, she sobbed, pointing at the screen. That's my son. He's a doctor. He can fix this. Call Gabriel. He can fix this. Back at the graduation, 1:45 p.m., I stood at the podium. I didn't know about the raid. I didn't know my brother was currently being cuffed in his underwear. I looked out at the crowd. They say you can't choose your family, I said into the microphone. But I disagree. Biology gives you relatives. Life gives you family. I looked at Elena. I looked at Tony. I looked at the senator. Family are the people who show up, I said, my voice cracking slightly. They are the people who don't need a party or a payout to love you. They are the people who sit in the front row. I took a breath. To my family here today, thank you. This degree is for us. The applause was deafening. It washed over me, cleansing me. I felt the weight of the last 10 years. The neglect, the stolen money, the insults lift off my shoulders. I was free. As I walked off the stage, Tony handed me my phone. It's been buzzing off the hook, he said. Might be important. I looked at the screen. 15 missed calls from Mom. 10 missed calls from Dad. 5 missed calls from Mason. And 1 text from Uncle David. Text from Uncle David, 1:50 p.m. Justice is served. Kid. Cops raided the house. Mason arrested. Your parents detained. It's all over the neighborhood news. They saw you on TV right before the handcuffs went on. You're a legend. I stared at the text. Is everything okay? Elena asked, touching my arm. I looked at the phone. I looked at the call mom button. I thought about the $5,000 they wanted. I thought about the little event. I thought about the torn tickets. Yeah, I said, turning the phone off and sliding it into my pocket. Everything is perfect. Who was it? Nobody, I smiled. Just a wrong number. The graduation reception was held at the senator's estate that evening. It was a world away from the chaos of my childhood. There were string lights in the trees, a jazz quartet playing soft music, and people discussing medical breakthroughs and charity work. I stood on the balcony, a glass of champagne in my hand. I was wearing a suit that Tony had bought for me as a graduation gift. It fit perfectly. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I was wearing a costume. "Dr. Miller," a voice said. I turned. It was a lawyer from the firm representing the hospital. "I hate to disturb you on your big night," he said, looking apologetic. "But the police station called the hospital switchboard looking for you. They said it was urgent regarding your next of kin. Are they hurt?" I asked, my instinct to save lives kicking in automatically. "No, sir. They are in custody. Your parents and your brother. They are requesting you come down to post bail. They claim you will cover it." I took a sip of champagne. The bubbles were crisp and cold. "Custody for what?" "Your brother for fraud, distribution, resisting arrest. Your parents for, well, allowing a disorderly house and potential accessory charges regarding the fraudulent loan they took out on a property." "The cabin," I said softly. "Yes, they seem to be under the impression that you have recently come into a significant amount of money. Something about a fellowship." I looked at the lawyer. "Tell them I'm busy." The lawyer blinked. "Sir, tell them I am attending my graduation celebration. Tell them I have no intention of posting bail for people who facilitated a crime. They are adults. They can call a bondsman if they have any assets left." They mentioned they don't have the money, sir. They said they spent it all on the party." "Then I guess they will have to wait until their arraignment on Monday," I said. "It's Saturday night. They'll have time to think." "Very well, doctor." The lawyer walked away. Elena slid her arm through mine. "That was cold," she whispered, but she was smiling. "It was necessary," I said. "If I go down there, if I bail them out, nothing changes. They learn nothing. Mason gets away with it again. Dad blames the cops. Mom blames the neighbors. This time, they have to sit in it." "You're right," she said. "Hey, come inside. My dad is making a toast." We went back inside. Tony raised a glass. "To Gabriel," he said, "who proved that you don't need a pedigree to be a thoroughbred." Everyone cheered. Later that night, I finally turned my phone back on. The voicemails flooded in. Voicemail 1, "Mom, 2 p.m. Gabriel. Answer the phone. The police are here. They're ruining Mason's party. You have to come. You're a doctor. Tell them to stop." Voicemail 2, "Dad, 3:30 p.m. Son, we saw the TV. We're so proud. Look, we're in a bit of a jam downtown. Just a misunderstanding. Bring that checkbook. Okay? We can celebrate after. We'll go to a nice dinner. On you, obviously. Haha." Voicemail 3, "Mason, 4 p.m. Bro, you gotta get me out. These cuffs are tight. They think I'm a drug dealer. Gabe, tell them it was just for the party. Tell them I'm an entrepreneur. Don't leave me here." I listened to them all. I didn't feel anger anymore. I felt pity. They were trapped in a cycle of their own making, a cycle of greed and image and stupidity. I deleted the messages. All of them. Then I opened my banking app. The notification from the trust fund had come through. The remaining inheritance from Grandma Rose. It wasn't a fortune, but it was enough to put a down payment on a house. A house that no one could take away from me. I looked at Elena. "How would you feel about moving?" I asked. "Moving where?" "Anywhere," I said. "Residency starts in July. But I have a feeling I'm going to be busy with the fellowship." "I think," she said, kissing my cheek, "that sounds like a plan." The next morning, the headlines were split. On the front page of the Metro section, Local student hero awarded Senate fellowship. On the bottom of page 4, in the police blotter, pool party raid leads to 3 arrests, seizure of narcotics. My parents lost the cabin. The bank foreclosed on it within the month. The predatory lender took everything. They also put a lien on their main house to pay for Mason's legal fees. Mason got 3 years probation and community service. He had to move back into his old room. The CEO reduced to picking up trash on the highway in an orange vest. My parents tried to reach out. They sent letters. They sent guilt-tripping cards. Family sticks together. Forgive and forget. But I had learned a valuable lesson in the ER. When a limb is gangrenous, when it's poisoning the rest of the body, you don't put a bandage on it. You amputate. It hurts. It leaves a scar. But it's the only way to survive. I chose survival. 5 years. In the medical world, 5 years is a lifetime. It's the difference between a trembling intern holding a scalpel for the first time and a chief resident commanding a trauma bay with a single look. It's enough time for cells to regenerate, for bones to knit back together, and for scars, physical ones at least, to fade into silver lines that you barely notice in the mirror. It was a Tuesday morning in October. The air outside was crisp, the leaves turning that burning shade of orange that always reminded me of my parents' driveway. Back before the for sale sign went up, I walked out of the hospital entrance, blinking in the sunlight. My shift had technically ended 2 hours ago, but I had stayed behind to monitor a post-op patient. A young kid, 19 years old, motorcycle accident. I had rebuilt his shattered femur. He was going to walk again. I walked across the physician's parking lot. I didn't head toward a rusted Honda Civic with taped-up windows anymore. I walked toward a Porsche 911, black, sleek, and fully paid for. I ran my hand over the hood. It wasn't about the car. I didn't buy it to show off. I didn't buy it to post photos on Instagram with hashtags about hustle culture. I bought it because I loved engineering. I loved precision. And mostly, I bought it because every time I turned the key and heard that engine purr, it reminded me that I wasn't the broke student begging for gas money anymore. It was a tangible receipt of my hard work. My phone buzzed as I slid into the leather seat. It was a notification from the county court system. I had kept the alert active for years, a morbid curiosity I couldn't quite shake. Case update. State versus Mason Miller. Probation review. Failed. Community service hours. Incomplete. I let out a sigh that fogged up the window. Mason. The last 5 years hadn't been kind to the golden boy. When the police raided the pool party that day, they didn't just find noise violations. They found a distribution quantity of controlled substances in his VIP tent. They found the fraudulent loan documents he had drafted for the investors. Because it was his first offense, and because our parents hired a shark of a lawyer, using the equity from their main house, of course, Mason avoided prison time. He got 3 years of probation, a mountain of fines, and 500 hours of community service. But Mason didn't do service. He didn't pick up trash. He didn't scrub graffiti. He tried to outsource it. He tried to pay a teenager to wear his orange vest and scan the highway for litter. He got caught. The judge was not amused. His probation was extended. His fines were doubled. He was currently 35 years old, living in a basement apartment that smelled of damp concrete, working part-time at a call center selling extended car warranties. The Mason global empire was just a digital footprint of deleted accounts and broken links. I started the car, the engine growling to life. I was heading home to Elena. We had bought a house in the hills, far away from the suburbs where I grew up. It was a sanctuary, quiet, peaceful, no screaming, no debt collectors banging on the door. But before I could put the car in gear, my phone rang. It was the front desk at the hospital. Dr. Miller? It was Sarah, the head intake nurse. She sounded uncomfortable. I'm here, Sarah. Just leaving. What's up? I am so sorry to bother you, doctor. I know you're post-call, but there are 2 people in the waiting room. They're causing a bit of a scene. My stomach tightened. Not with fear. Not anymore. But with that weary annoyance you feel when a mosquito buzzes in your ear. Who are they? They claim to be your parents, doctor. Mr. and Mrs. Miller? They don't have an appointment. They're insisting that the chief, I assume they mean you, will squeeze them in. They're demanding to bypass the insurance verification. I closed my eyes. I gripped the steering wheel. I could have driven away. I could have told Sarah to call security and have them escorted out. I could have pretended I was already on the highway. But I knew them. If I left, they would harass the staff. They would scream at the nurses. They would embarrass me in the place I had worked so hard to build my reputation. I'm coming back in, I said. Keep them in the lobby. Do not bring them back to the clinical area. Understood, doctor. I turned off the car. I took a deep breath, visualizing the armor I wore in the ore. I wasn't Gabriel the son. I was Dr. Miller. I walked back into the hospital, my white coat flapping slightly behind me. The air conditioning hit my face, cooling the heat rising in my neck. I saw them as soon as I rounded the corner. They looked smaller. That was the first thing that struck me. My father, Robert, used to be a big man. Imposing. Loud. Now he looked shrunken inside a polo shirt that was faded at the collar. His hair was thinning, and he had the stoop of a man who carried the weight of bad decisions. My mother, Susan, was worse. She was wearing a dress I recognized from 10 years ago, but it hung loosely on her frame. Her face was lined with stress, her makeup applied with a shaky hand. She was arguing with the receptionist, pointing a finger that trembled. "He is the chief resident," Mom was saying, her voice shrill but lacking its old power. "Do you know who that is? He runs this place. You can't ask me for a copay. I am his mother." "Ma'am, please lower your voice," the receptionist said firmly. "Mom," I said. The word cut through the noise like a scalpel. They both froze. They turned. When they saw me, their faces went through a complex gymnastics routine. Shock, relief, shame, and then, inevitably, that mask of fake pride slid into place. "Gabriel!" Mom cried out, rushing forward as if to hug me. "Oh, look at you. Robert, look at him. Dr. Miller." I didn't step forward. I didn't open my arms. I stood still, my hands in the pockets of my white coat. She stopped a foot away from me, sensing the invisible wall I had erected. Her arms dropped awkwardly to her sides. "Hello, Gabriel," Dad said, trying to muster some dignity. We were just in the neighborhood. Thought we'd stop by." "You live 40 miles away, Dad," I said, my voice flat. "You weren't in the neighborhood. And Sarah tells me you're trying to bypass billing." Dad cleared his throat, looking at the floor. "Well, it's just bureaucracy, you know? Paperwork. We figured since you're the big boss now, you could just wave a hand. Professional courtesy." "I am a doctor," I said. "Not an insurance company. What do you need?" "It's your father," Mom said, her eyes welling up with tears that might have been real, or might have been a performance. It was always hard to tell. "His back is getting worse. He can barely work. He lost his job at the warehouse because he can't lift the boxes anymore." "I see," I said. "And you want me to look at it?" "We want the best," Dad said, puffing out his chest slightly. "And we heard you're the best neurosurgeon in the state. We follow your career, son. We see the articles." "You follow the articles?" I asked, a dry laugh escaping me. "Did you see the one about the charity gala I hosted last month? Or the one about the research grant I won? Or just the ones that mention my salary bracket?" "That's not fair," Mom sniffled. "We are proud of you. We tell everyone. That's our Gabriel. We tell the neighbors. We tell the people at church." "Does Mason tell people?" I asked. The name hung in the air. "Mason is struggling," Mom whispered. "He's trying, Gabriel. He really is. But the system is rigged against him. That judge had a vendetta. And the fines? It's impossible to get ahead." "It's not the system," I said. "It's consequences. Something he never learned about because you shielded him from them his entire life." "He's your brother," Dad snapped, a flash of the old anger returning. "He's blood. And right now, he's living in a basement with mold because we lost the house. We lost everything, Gabriel. Everything. You didn't lose it? I corrected him, my voice rising just enough to be heard clearly by the staff pretending not to listen. You gave it away. You gambled it. You took a second mortgage on a home you owned free and clear to throw a party for a liar. You bet on a horse with 3 legs and blamed the track when it collapsed. We made a mistake, Dad shouted. Are you going to punish us for the rest of our lives? We are your parents. We fed you. We clothed you. You did the bare minimum required by law, I said. And the moment I became inconvenient, the moment I needed you to choose me over a bottle of vodka and a DJ, you left me. You didn't just miss my graduation. You made a statement. You told me I wasn't worth your time. We're sorry. Mom was sobbing openly now. How many times do we have to say it? We're sorry. You're sorry because you're broke, I said brutally. You weren't sorry when you thought Mason was going to be a millionaire. You weren't sorry when you called me to brag about the party. You're sorry now because the other investment failed, and you're looking for a new ATM. We need help, Dad pleaded, his anger dissolving into desperation. They're going to evict us from the rental, Gabriel. We're 2 months behind. And my back. I need surgery. I need you to fix it. I looked at them. I looked at the people who had raised me. I saw the fear in their eyes, the genuine, raw fear of poverty and old age. Part of me, the part that was trained to heal, wanted to help. It would be so easy. I could write a check. I could pull strings. I could fix Dad's back pro bono. But then I remembered the envelope, the gold embossed tickets I tore up. I remembered the trust fund they hid. I remembered Elena's face when I told her they weren't coming. I can't treat you, I said. What? Dad blinked. Ethically, I cannot operate on family members. There's a conflict of interest. Against hospital policy. Then refer us. Mom begged. Get us into one of your partners. Get it done for free. I can refer you to the clinic, I said. They have a sliding scale for payment based on income. They have excellent residents. They will take good care of you. Residents, Dad scoffed. Students? You want a student cutting into my spine? I was a student once, I said coldly, and I was good enough to save a senator's daughter. But I wasn't good enough for you to watch. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a card. It wasn't my business card. It was the card for the hospital's social work department. Take this. Go to the 3rd floor. Ask for Mrs. Higgins. She can help you apply for Medicaid and emergency housing assistance. I handed the card to my father. He took it, his hand shaking. He looked at the card, then at me as if waiting for the punchline, as if waiting for me to laugh and pull out a wad of cash. That's it, he whispered. Social work? Like we're charity cases. You are in need, I said. This is the help available. You ungrateful. Dad started, his face reddening. Don't. I stepped closer, lowering my voice to a dangerous whisper. Do not finish that sentence, because if you cause a scene in my hospital, I will have you banned. Permanently, and then you won't even get the clinic. Dad closed his mouth. He looked at Mom. She was weeping silently, looking at my white coat, realizing that the distance between us wasn't just physical anymore. It was a chasm of class, of values, of reality. Goodbye, Robert. Goodbye, Susan. I said. I didn't call them Mom and Dad. Couldn't. I turned around and walked back toward the elevators. I didn't look back. I heard Mom call my name one last time. A weak, broken sound, but I kept walking. I got into the elevator. The doors closed, shutting out their image. I pressed the button for the parking garage. My hands were steady. My heart rate was normal. I thought I would feel guilty. I thought I would feel sad. But all I felt was the quiet satisfaction of a diagnosis confirmed. They hadn't changed. They hadn't learned. They were simply looking for a new host. And I had finally, successfully immunized myself. I walked back to my Porsche. I got in. I drove out of the lot, leaving the hospital and them behind. The drive home was a meditation. As the city skyline faded in my rearview mirror, replaced by the rolling green hills of the suburbs. I let the tension of the encounter drain away. I pulled into the driveway of our home. It wasn't a mansion, but it was beautiful, solid, built on a foundation of honest money and mutual respect. Elena's car was in the drive, a sensible SUV, complete with 2 car seats in the back. I walked inside. The smell of garlic and rosemary hit me. Elena was cooking. "Daddy!" 2 voices perfectly synchronized. My twins, Leo and Maya, came thundering down the hallway. They were 4 years old, a whirlwind of energy and laughter. I dropped my bag. I dropped my keys. I dropped to my knees. They crashed into me, burying their faces in my neck. Leo smelled like Play-Doh. Maya smelled like strawberries. "Hey, monsters!" I laughed, hugging them tight. "Did you terrorize Mommy today?" "Yes," Leo announced proudly. "No," Maya argued. Elena walked into the hallway, wiping her hands on a towel. She looked tired. She had worked a half shift at the clinic that morning. But when she saw me, her face lit up. "Hey, hotshot," she smiled. "Rough day. Interesting day," I said, standing up and lifting Leo onto my shoulders. "My parents came to the hospital." Elena's smile faltered. She froze. "What? Are they okay? Physically? Yes. Financially? No. Morally? Bankruptcy." I walked into the kitchen carrying my son. I told her the story as I helped her chop vegetables. I told her about the demands, the guilt trips, the refusal to take responsibility. "And what did you do?" she asked, watching me closely. "I sent them to social work," I said, "and I walked away." Elena put down her knife. She walked over to me and wrapped her arms around my waist, resting her head on my chest. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. I felt like I should have felt worse," I admitted. "Is that wrong? To feel nothing?" "It's not nothing, Gabe," she said, looking up at me. "It's peace. You grieved them 5 years ago. You did the work. Today was just paperwork." She was right, as always. Later that night, after we put the twins to bed, reading them 3 stories because Leo insisted on just one more, I went into my home office. It was a quiet room. Bookshelves lined the walls. On the desk sat a framed photo of me, Elena, Tony, and the senator from that graduation day. We looked so young, so hopeful. But my eyes drifted to the wall above the desk. There, framed in simple black wood, was my medical diploma. Doctor of Medicine, summa cum laude. And next to it, a smaller, older frame. A picture of me and Uncle David fishing at the cabin when I was 7. I walked over to the closet and pulled out my white coat. The one I wore today. The one with Dr. Gabriel Miller, Chief of Neurosurgery, embroidered on the pocket. I ran my thumb over the stitching. For years, I thought this coat was a costume. I thought I was tricking the world. That deep down, I was just the neglected kid who wasn't worth a $50 gas loan. But I wasn't that kid anymore. I sat down at my desk and opened my journal. I had started writing in it during my internship, a way to process the trauma of the ER. I wrote, June 15th, 5 years post-grad. Diagnosis, survivor. Treatment, complete separation. Prognosis, excellent. I thought about Mason. I wondered if he was sitting in that basement right now, blaming me, blaming the judge, blaming the world. He was a prisoner of his own entitlement, trapped in a cell built by parents who loved him too much to let him grow up. They had crippled him with kindness. They had destroyed him with yes. I had been saved by their no. If they had paid my tuition, I might have felt obligated to them. If they had come to my graduation, I might have let them back in. If they had treated me like the golden child, I might have ended up like Mason, hollow, fragile, unable to stand on my own 2 feet. Their neglect was the fire that forged me. Their absence was the space where I built my own character. I closed the journal. I walked to the window and looked out at the backyard. There was no pool, just a swing set, a sandbox, a garden that Elena and the kids planted. It wasn't a networking event. It wasn't a launch party. It was a home. I thought about the future. One day Leo and Maya would graduate. One day, they would look out into a crowd, searching for faces, and they would never ever see an empty seat. I would be there. Elena would be there. Uncle David would be there. We would be the safety net I never had. We would be the applause I had to earn from strangers. I turned off the light. I walked out of the office, closing the door softly behind me. I went upstairs to the bedroom where my wife was sleeping. I crawled into bed beside her, pulling the duvet up. "Gabe," she mumbled, half asleep. "Yeah, I'm here. You okay?" "Yeah," I said, kissing her forehead. "I'm finally cured." The darkness of the room felt comforting, not lonely. The silence wasn't empty. It was full of breath, of life, of love. My brother threw a pool party during my graduation. My parents chose the booze over my diploma. And it was the best thing they ever did for me. Because on that day, while they were drowning, I learned how to swim. Thank you for walking this road with me. It wasn't an easy journey to share, but standing here on the other side of it, I've learned a truth that changed my life. Toxic family members are like gangrene. We are taught that blood is thicker than water, that we must forgive family no matter what. But sometimes, keeping that connection destroys your own spirit. I learned that you cannot save people who are committed to their own destruction. My parents and Mason were drowning, but every time I reached out a hand, they tried to pull me under with them. Setting boundaries wasn't an act of cruelty. It was an act of survival. It was the only way I could build a healthy life for my own children, to ensure the cycle of neglect and entitlement ended with me. The greatest victory wasn't the money, the Porsche, or even the title of doctor. It was the peace of mind. It was looking at my children and knowing they will never have to beg for my attention. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to make the hard choice to cut ties with a family member to save yourself? Or maybe you felt like the invisible child, while a sibling got all the glory. Please, drop a good in the comments if you agree that boundaries are necessary for mental health. Or better yet, share your own moment of realization. Your story might be the lifeline someone else needs to read today. Let's support each other in the comments. Thank you for listening. Stay strong.